Hello again, everyone. We'll be starting our live stream in just a minute or two. If you're out there and you can hear, just let me know how the audio is coming in. If it's loud and clear, if it needs to be louder, softer. We'll see you in a minute or two, and kindly let me know how it's sounding. Okay, I'll be starting up in a minute or two. Again, if you can hear me out there, just let me know how it sounds. Appreciate that. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television, SBTV. I'm your host, Patrick Vieira, and we are live. This is our weekly live stream, so hope everyone out there is doing fine. If you're out there, just give me a chime. Let me know how things are sounding. Okay, Max, thank you. Appreciate it. Again, if you are new to this channel, please do remember to subscribe. Go ahead and click on the bell to be notified of new updates and give us a thumbs up. If you like what we do, we appreciate your support. The thumbs up really do mean a lot to us. And don't forget that you can also find us on social media, our website, www.silverbullion.com.sg. We are in Singapore. It's our website where you can buy and sell precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, nickel, even cobalt. And you can store it here in Singapore. We are on Facebook, Silver Bullion SG, Twitter, Silver Bullion PL, PL for private limited. The audio versions can be found on iTunes, SBTV iTunes, on Spotify, SBTV Spotify, and do join our Telegram group, which we started not too long ago, SB Crisis Tracker, where we do post things that could be related to gold and silver, current events, political, geopolitical, things you need to know to make decisions in your life. So again, we do appreciate you being here. Let's see. Jason, thank you, Jason. PM Ruckus, aloha. How you doing? Pablo Pina, hola. Sounds clear. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Let me check on one more thing before I get started. I just need to situate this so it fits in my box here. Okay, just give me a couple seconds to do this all. How's everyone doing? Everybody's weekend going okay? Ready for work tomorrow? Okay, there we go. Yes, I do appreciate you guys being here once again. And I want to thank all of you who commented on the question that I had asked in the community group, where what got you started in precious metals, or, was it a person that had told you something? Was it a dream even? Was it just an awakening? And a lot of you guys responded, and I do appreciate that. It I think all of us, we have various reasons why we came into precious metals. So I always find it interesting to see what they are. Jason, off tomorrow. Hey, lucky you. That's right, Labor Day weekend. Forgot about that. Labor Day weekend in the States. Okay, Josh. is saying you need to get on Keith McCullough and Darius Dale. Okay, we'll take a note of that, and we'll see. We'll see what we can do with that. Uh, so moving forward, Monday morning here in Singapore, and so we take a look at some of the news. And one thing we uh, found pretty interesting. In fact, well, it's kind of something we know, but we'd like to share, is that Singapore was among the world's safest cities. Hong Kong dropped. I think that might be expected somewhat considering what's going on there. But Tokyo, Singapore, and Osaka have once again been named the world's safest cities by the Economist Intelligence Unit in its third set of rankings based on urban safety and resilience. Hong Kong, it dropped a bit, but things are not going too well in Hong Kong right now. They have issues that they need to settle. Other Asian cities also fell. Um, Beijing, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta. So those are also cities that made the list. But Singapore being number two, I mean, I think that says a lot as to, also backing up and giving credibility as to what we've been saying about Singapore. Uh, so looking at the rankings, number one, we see Tokyo. Two, we see Singapore. Three, Osaka. Four, Amsterdam. Interesting one for me is down at number 15, New York. New York made the list, one of the world's safest cities. Okay, I guess as long as the Giants, Jets, and Yankees are winning, and then everything in New York is fine, right? So let's hope those New York teams do well. So yeah, Hong Kong is down at 20, and yeah, all the way down to Jakarta, Indonesia. So what they did was they looked at a few key elements, including joint planning by all relevant stakeholders, government and non-governmental, to prepare for shocks. So one of the criteria was how well is the government prepared for shocks, and a new understanding of infrastructure that uses a city's natural assets as tools to enhance its ability to absorb shocks, and the importance of promoting social connectedness among citizens in creating communities that will work together in a crisis. So I think all those things are pretty good, and that's where Singapore does pretty well. I mean, it's a small nation, very very small nation, and people know, you know, yes, you have your own personal life, but in the end, you are going to have to depend on each other, and the government knows that it needs to keep a certain amount of peace and stability and fairness and justice in the small nation state in order to keep it going, because a lot of what Singapore is transparency and trust, and again, these are reasons why we will often talk about people wanting to store outside of their home countries that may be looking to be a little bit chaotic. Singapore is one of those places that does look very good and will continue to look good. It's a matter of it's part of its existence. It needs to maintain transparency and trust. Okay, Wandering Soul, hello from Wandering Soul. Sorry, hello from upstate New York. How you doing? Josh, I've worked with them for a long time, and they're incredibly intelligent. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Good day, Perth Mint down the road. Yeah, okay. Perth Mint, do you ever go straight to the mint to pick up things? I mean, I know they have like some type of a savings type of a deal there also, right? Uh, Nickel on full alarm, 1800. Yes, Nickel has been doing some pretty good things lately. Um, let's see. Okay, okay. So I guess that pretty much catches up with the chat. Sorry about that. I was going through some things. I don't know. Some guys had some bad dinner or something. Looks like some not too happy comments, but anyway, it's okay. So going forward, let's take a look at the gold and silver price. Our favorite thing to do, right? Or one of them anyway. So again, this is our website, www.silverbullion.com in US dollars. We're taking a look at silver 1840. It was up about 10 cents or so this morning. It kind of went back down. Gold was up about $10 or so. Went a little bit back down. Nickel, when I first checked this morning, nickel was down $6, and this is per ton now. And now it's up 460. So nickel is, I tell you, word is getting out about nickel. And if you ever had a chance to watch our market updates where we talk about electric vehicles and the metals, specifically nickel and cobalt, you guys know that we've been pretty much preaching about what's going to happen with nickel, and it looks like it's happening. Silver gold ratio 83.1. We were below 83 through the weekend. I think we're at 82.80 or 90 something, but back up at 83 as we saw. Silver started up this morning and went a little down, but that's what the metals do. So we all know that already. Okay, taking a look more at the chat here. Let's see. Pablo Pina. December 2017, I saw how high Bitcoin climbed and gold where it is, and Peter Schiff kept hitting the nail about economy and gold. I put some logical thinking into works. Yeah, at that time, Bitcoin had a really good run, and I know a lot of us silver and gold guys, we were kind of wondering, hey, what's going on? Did we do the right thing? Did we do the wrong thing? Should we get into this crypto? And we were trying to understand crypto, and for a lot of us, it wasn't an easy thing to do to understand it, but a lot of it is because we do know that things are going to happen with the dollar, and they're not positive things. So we started looking for other alternatives, whether it was gold, silver, or even crypto. One more person I want to acknowledge, American Rebel 27, will be making first PM purchase this week. That's good. That's good for you. The hardest purchase is the first purchase. After that, once you hold it and you keep holding it and keep holding it and looking at it, you're going to find yourself, trying to do what you can to keep making those purchases. But, just get what you can, because the last thing you want to do is have to sell some of it off because of a family emergency, or maybe you got to go pull a wisdom tooth or whatever it is, and there's just not money there to do it, then you need to dip into your gold and silver. So get what you can when you can. Don't overdo it. Don't over leverage. But getting back to why we buy gold and silver, it's because we do understand that there's things going on with the dollar that is pretty troubling. And there was a report that came out from J.P. Morgan. What they asked, or the title of it was, "Is the dollar's exorbitant privilege coming to an end?" That question is easy to answer. We all know it's yes. The U.S. dollar could lose its status as the world's dominant currency. How does this affect investors? It's actually, how does it affect all of us? But in the article, it's how does it affect investors? The U.S. dollar has been the world's dominant reserve currency for almost a century. As such, many investors today, even outside the U.S., have built and become comfortable with sizable U.S. dollar overweights in their portfolios. However, we believe the dollar could lose its status as the world's dominant currency, which could see it depreciate over the medium term due to structural reasons as well as cyclical impediments. As such, diversifying dollar exposure by placing a higher weighting on other currencies in developed markets in Asia. So this is J.P. Morgan saying other currencies in developed markets in Asia, as well as precious metals. So again, this is J.P. Morgan now saying, it's hey, maybe it is time now to start moving into precious metals. So this is the diversification that can be achieved with a strategy that maintains the underlying assets in a completely bespoke. I always get nervous when investment banks use that word bespoke. Completely bespoke approach that can be customized to meet the unique needs of individual clients. I'll just read through a bit more here. The rise of the dollar. It is commonly perceived that the U.S. dollar overtook the British pound as the world's international reserve currency with the signing of the Bretton Woods agreements after World War II. The reality is that sterling's value was eroded for many decades prior to Bretton Woods. It sounds familiar, right? I mean, we're already seeing the dollar's value eroding. Uh, the dollar's rise to international prominence was fueled by the establishment of the Federal Reserve System a little over a century ago and the U.S. economic emergence after World War One. Federal Reserve System aided in the establishment of a more mature capital markets and a nationally coordinated monetary policy, two important pillars of the reserve currency countries. Being the world's unit of account has given the U.S. what former French Finance Minister Valéry Estaing called an exorbitant privilege. By being able to purchase imports and issue debt in its own currency and run persistent deficits seemingly without consequence. So this is something again we've all been saying for years. We've all known this, and we all know that reserve currencies or dominant currencies don't last forever. There's nothing to suggest that the dollar dominance should remain in perpetuity. In fact, the dominant international currency has changed many times throughout history, going back thousands of years as the world's economic center has shifted. So now it starts to get a little bit interesting where after World War II, the US accounted for the biggest share of world GDP at more than 25%. This number is brought to more than 40% when we include Western European powers. Since then, the main driver of economic growth has shifted eastwards towards Asia at the expense of the US and the West. China is at the epicenter of this recent economic shift, driven by the country's strong growth and commitment to domestic reforms. Not sure if I agree with that. Over the last 70 years, China has quadrupled its share of global GDP to around 20%, roughly the same share as the US, and this share is expected to continue to grow in the years ahead. China is no longer just a manufacturer of low cost goods, as a growing share of corporate earnings is coming from high value add sectors like technology. That is true. You know, there was a time where China was just making cheap knockoffs. I mean, some areas they still do, but they've gotten to a point where they've learned and they've learned how to make things better. Of course, things cheaper. They learned how to push technology. You know, when you have enough ingredients to bake a cake, you can start to shift it around on your own and make an even better cake, right? And so that's where China is right now. Um, Going a bit forward, I'll skip these charts, but you know, in addition to China, the economies of Southeast Asia, including India, have strong secular tailwinds driven by younger demographics. It is true. We're getting older in the West and proliferating technology, technological know how, specifically the Asian Economic Zone, from the Arabian Peninsula and Turkey in the west to Japan and New Zealand in the east, and from Russia in the north and Australia in the south. Now represents 50% of global GDP and two-thirds of global economic growth. So we can see it shifting, right? And I think most of us, again, we know that it's already shifting. So of the estimated 30 trillion in middle class consumption growth between 2015 and 2030, only 1 trillion is expected to come from today's Western economies. As this region grows, the share of non USD transactions will inevitably increase, which will likely erode the dollar's reserveness, even if the dollar isn't replaced as the dominant international currency. In other words, in the coming decades, we think the world economy will transition from the US and US dollar dominance toward a system where Asia wields greater power. In currency space, this means the US dollar will likely lose value compared to a basket of other currencies, including precious commodities like gold. Okay, so again, these are things most of us already know. For some, it's something new. For some, it's something a bit troubling. But these are the reasons why a lot of us do get into silver and gold. It's not just an investment, it's an insurance. Okay, looking at some of the chat. Frank, 100% agrees. Singapore is the safest place in the world in terms of geographical, military, economy, good governance, and trust. Frank, you know what? I'd have to agree. When I first came to Singapore, coming from the U.S., it took me a while to understand and to buy into that concept. And it took a little bit of buy-in because once you buy in, you tend to open your eyes and your ears more, and then you start to see, and you start to see that, hey, this thing is true. It's really true. It's real. And then in my case, I started to take a look back at my home country, the U.S., and it was hard for me to accept that, you know, here's another country, small country that, yeah, is doing better. It's brighter. It's smarter. It has a government that does what it says it's going to do. You know, you don't have, unlike the U.S. when it's election time, you know, politicians they'll give you the world just to get your vote. Here, it's not like that. You know, you will hear things pretty much straight, cut and dry. I mean, just in complete honesty. And so I think that's one of the benefits of Singapore. Um, let's see. UMA, if it were not for the Fed, American lifestyle standards and war funding wouldn't be possible. Yeah. People would still be doing fine with free markets and have a surplus budget for defense weapons. You know what? I agree. And if I can add to that, if we just did, if we just left the silver in the money, or even the gold, if we had left those two things alone, we'd be doing fine. I've showed you folks how before where $1.50 in quarters, 1964 and before, pre-65 quarters, $1.50, 6 quarters. Today is over $18 an ounce, right? Those 6 quarters or $1.50 comes out to about the weight of 1 ounce of silver. And, you know, people are crying out, hey, we need, or politicians are saying we need to raise minimum wage here, there, here, there, here, there, $15 an hour. You just needed to to leave the silver in the coin, and you would have it. You would have over $15 for $1.50 face value. So, you know, politicians, they are what they are, right? Um, let's see. East Indian East Indian Company destroyed the Indian and Chinese silver standard in favor of gold standard. Yeah, you know, China silver standard in Asia was a big deal. You know, in fact, I think it, it was one of the first uses of money in Asia was silver, more so than gold. Let's see, U.S. dollar, Michael Aotearoa. U.S. dollar may not go away without a war. Uh, you can't deny that. You know, I don't think any country is going to surrender power that easily. And so it comes back to what that article had said. You know, is the U.S. ready for a transition of currency power, and what's it going to look like? My opinion, no. U.S. is not ready to give up that power, and like Michael just said, you know, uh, they may not give it up without a fight, and that's, you know, pretty pretty worrisome, pretty troubling. But I think it's a reality we got to look at. I don't think they're going to give up power. Um, Being from the U.S., I'll just say this: I don't think we know how to be number two. You know, we were born and raised to believe we're number one in just about everything, and so I don't think we know how to be number two. I have to be honest about that. I don't think the nation will know how to be number two. They're not gonna give up being number one in their minds without some sort of a fight. So, you know, it's things are gonna get pretty dicey. Let's see. 1 ounce of silver was a day's pay back in the. 1 ounce of silver did a lot back in the day. Probably really did. Um, let's see. Uh, Gigs roll. Ooh, oh, tough name. It's all fake. There's no enemies. All the enemies are working together. Hmm. Hard to say. Well, it seems nowadays there are a lot of people trying to work together. Once globalization started and people's economies got intertwined, nations had no choice but to try and work together. But the problem with that is each nation is still a sovereign nation and has its own individual set of circumstances that it needs to deal with that are going to be different from another nation's set of circumstances. So in that sense, globalization, I'm going to say it does not work. We're too unique, we're too individual countries anyway to intertwine our economies and think that it's going to be a broad brush that can paint over every country's individual situations and problems. It's not going to work. Something's going to have to give. Um, okay, so I don't think the U.S. is ready for it. What will it look like? It's going to be a rough time. It's going to be a rough time for people. And we did have a lot of guests saying it's going to look like 2008 or even worse than 2008. And that reminded me of the movie The Big Short, which I have a little clip of. It's just about a minute or so. It's the end of the movie, and there's one part in the end that I find pretty interesting. So I'll go ahead and play that clip.
Paulson and Bernanke just left the White House. There's going to be a bailout.
Well, they had to, right? I mean, paper markets would have
They
collapsed.
knew.
Cash would have stopped coming out of ATMs. They had to backstop this.
They knew the taxpayers would bail them out. They weren't being stupid. They just didn't care.
Yeah, because they're fucking crooks. But
At least we're going to see some of them go to jail. Right? I mean, they're going to have to break up the banks.
I mean, the party's over.
I don't know. I have a feeling that in a few years, people are going to be doing what they always do when the economy tanks. They will be blaming immigrants and poor people.
Yeah, so 2008, we all know a lot of damage was done. We all know they turned to the people, the citizens, to bail the banks and other companies out, and later on it led to QE, money printing. Um, but the part for me that got me was when it mentioned how 401ks, bonds, things like that, really took a hit. Excuse me, really did take a hit. And I'll just share with you. In the mid '90s, late '90s, my 401k was doing very very well. And then September 11th, 2001 happened. My 401k that was doing very well lost a few tens of thousands on it. And this is the reason why, I will always preach to you guys, if you have a 401k, I know you've been looking at your statements, you've been watching it go up, and in part it's because the stock market has been going up. Now, that same stock market that's going up, that's been benefiting your 401k, that's the same stock market that looks like it's going to take a hit one day. And when it does, your 401k is going to take a hit. And this is the reason why I say, if you do have a 401k, look into a SD IRA, a self-directed IRA. Okay, talk with companies that can help you roll over some of that 401k into a precious metals IRA. Because if you're buying gold and silver today because you think there's going to be a fiat event, you need to understand your 401k is exposed just the same. And it may be it is a good idea to look into rolling some of that over into a precious metals IRA. Otherwise, you don't want to be like me where I took a hit. I didn't know anything about a precious metals IRA at that time. If I did, I for sure would have done it. So at least just look into it. Disclaimer, it's not financial advice. This is just from me to you saying this is what happened to me. I hope and pray it does not happen to you. take the precaution and get some gold and silver insurance. Okay, back to live chat. Where are we? If U.S. and China really are an amazing, let me see. If us and China really are, J.P. Morgan is a strategic financial institution. Oh, the rabbit hole is okay. Rabbit. Well, there seems to be more and more rabbit holes popping up lately, right? Um, let's see. What would be the advice to someone who is in the Caribbean? Yeah, I hope things are okay down there. I know you got the hurricane going on, right? That is not able to travel to the U.S. to purchase gold or silver. Currently, it would take me, wow, 11,200 per. Um, you, if you want physical, you're going to have to find someone that can ship it there. Short of going to the U.S., um, you're really going to have to find someone that'll ship it. And but then you need to also know what your customs and your duties, how they look at importing or bringing in precious metals. Pablo Pina, true. Why gamble with the pension if stocks is the gamble? And yeah, Pablo, that's the point. I mean, guest after guest after guest is already saying, pensions are going to be in trouble. And you don't really hear them talk about 401ks too much, but those are going to get hit as well. So if you've been enjoying your 401k statements lately and seeing that it's going up, take a pause and take some time to think about rolling some of that over into a precious metals IRA. The thing is, back then there were funny things going on, and even today there are funny things going on, and we can just go back in history a little bit, and we're gonna recall times where J.P. Morgan, they get busted for manipulation, and a lot of times what they do is they spoof the markets. Just to read this real quick, this was a few years back. This is not current news, so this is, so don't get confused that it recently happened. So a previously secret guilty plea by a former commodity trader, J.P. Morgan, admitted that he rigged precious metals markets, has drawn attention of a lawyer who has already accused traders at the nation's largest bank. This lawyer, he was struck by how much in common his civil case pending in New York federal court against J.P. Morgan Chase has with the conduct outlined in the ongoing criminal case in the Connecticut against John Edmonds. Edmonds is a Brooklyn resident who pleaded guilty in October to fraudulently manipulating the precious metals markets from 2009 to 2015. He admitted working with unnamed co-conspirators at his former employer, J.P. Morgan. The Justice Department made public November 6 when it unsealed the case. Edmonds' criminal plea related to spoofing, a certain type of improper trading that has been the subject of a broader regulatory crackdown on market manipulation in the decade since the 2008 financial crisis. So funny things keep continuing to go on. We'd even find more where Deutsche Bank, we we all know Deutsche Bank situation already. This came out last year, January. So this is not recent, but again, we're laying the foundation for things. Gold silver manipulation, CFT fines Deutsche Bank, should be UBS, HSBC. Remember that name now, for spoofing markets. So this was an article that came out from Kitco. Three major European banks have been fined by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission for, once again, spoofing and manipulating gold and silver markets. CFTC announced Monday that Deutsche Bank, UBS, and HSBC, now remember that name, face fines totaling 46.6 million. Deutsche Bank was the hardest hit as it was fined 30 million. UBS was ordered to pay 15 million and HSBC was fined 1.6 million. So spoofing, again, according to some traders, is the result of high frequency trading and is a manipulation technique where bids and offers are placed in bad faith to create a misrepresentation of demand and sentiment in the marketplace. The orders are quickly canceled before being filled. One thing about spoofing, I talked to a banker once and I asked him about spoofing, and he told me spoofing is a good strategy. If you can believe that, uh, spoofing is a good strategy. That's what he had told me. But I'm gonna lay something out for you guys. So we know that J.P. Morgan manipulates precious metals market. We know that Deutsche Bank manipulates the precious metals market, HSBC, and we know that Deutsche Bank recently had to go into that bad bank type of deal where they're trying to trim the fat, get rid of things that are not profitable, things that are making them lose money. So they're Deutsche Bank has been trimming the fat. We know that, and they're going through a lot of restructuring. And then I saw this article come out. It was a while back, about a month or so back, and it said Deutsche Bank hires head of precious metals trading. Now, at this time, I'm thinking, hires the head of precious metals trading. Wait a minute. Aren't they supposed to be trimming the fat? You know, they've been losing money here, there, here, there. They need to restructure. But they hired a head of precious metals trading. The German bank is looking to hold on to some investment banking businesses, even as it makes deep cuts to equities. Investment banking business. I mean, so when I read this article, first thing I'm thinking is, okay, wait a minute. Do they plan to manipulate markets again? We know they're already in trouble. They're scrambling. They're trying to restructure. Why are they keeping precious metals? Okay, they're going to keep it. But I know they are one of the banks that tends to manipulate the market. So I'm getting a bit concerned at this point when I see this article, right? So this is dated July 15th of this year. So Deutsche Bank has hired a senior trader for its fixed income division from HSBC. So now that worries me even more. I mean, I know already what Deutsche Bank does. We know already what HSBC does. Now Deutsche Bank is trimming the fat, but they're keeping their precious metals division, which they're calling investment banking business. Investment for who? For them to manipulate the market? Don't know yet, right? We're going to have to wait and see. And they're bringing a guy from HSBC. So one bank who's known to manipulate the markets brings in another guy from another bank, which that bank is known to manipulate markets. Now, I'm not saying this guy manipulates or has done anything wrong. I'm just saying we know already both banks, they have no problem manipulating the market. So I'm getting concerned here. So the bank has hired Dan Timoshenko as head of precious metals trading for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. It confirmed in a statement on his LinkedIn profile. Timoshenko said he was set to rebuild a business that was once in the top echelons of the precious metals industry. Okay, I'm kind of confused here now. So this guy is saying he's trying to rebuild this business that was at the top, but it's also a business that the bank had that was manipulating markets. So I'm getting a bit concerned now, right? Things are, looking things are not looking legit right now. And so again, I'm kind of wondering what's going on. And then, there were articles that also came out about some silver whale starting to buy a lot of silver. And this came out earlier in July, or the whole silver whale thing first was started being noticed in July. And this guy, Robert Kintz, he writes an article dated August 5th. Who is the silver whale? The silver whale. Silver bulls may finally get redemption. So somebody's buying a heck of a lot of silver now. So a large futures trader has switched from short to long, which is very unusual for this market based on recent history. We all know they will short the market and we see our gold and silver start to fall. But two theories have been posted. China is protecting their silver imports, or a managed money trader has made a very unique long bet on silver's price. And I think you're going to know these two guys. One was Alistair McLeod, who is saying it was China, and we have Ted Butler, who was saying he believes it's a money trader or a money manager. So a similar massive long bet has been placed on the silver ETF SLV. Somebody big knows something about the upcoming price action in silver. So silver buyers may finally be getting their long-awaited silver bull market. So let me scroll down a little bit here. So again, this is Alistair. Alistair McLeod. He was saying he believes it's China, and we had Ted Butler who believes it was some type of a money manager. And yeah, this thing comes up saying I need to register so I can look at their article. So I'll get out of that. So, but anyway, so we have these two guys, Butler and McLeod. One saying China, one saying some money fund, money managers doing it or buying it up for someone else who we don't know who that someone else is. And this is all happening at the time where gold was moving, and we were all wondering what the heck is happening with silver. How come silver hasn't left the platform yet? Gold is starting to move. Silver wasn't going anywhere. We've had guests come on the show, and I don't think any one of them gave a satisfying answer as to why silver wasn't moving. And so again, this is all happening at the same time where this whale is, I should say, Deutsche Bank is bringing in this guy from HSBC, and silver is not moving yet. We're waiting to see what's going on, and then it starts to unfold where David Morgan put the final pieces together as to who that whale might have been.
Mostly it's the ETFs. You see these big moves in the ETFs. You see it going in Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank, I think, has taken possession of, I think it's 9 million ounces of physical silver in the last month or so.
Okay, so David Morgan, he connected the final dots where he's saying it was Deutsche Bank. So Deutsche Bank reported there's a guy coming in. This report came out mid-July. And of course, we know when you're going to start a new job, especially in that type of a position, you're going to actually start working before probably your first official start date. So when we look at mid-July, right about here, we see that, nothing much is really going on with silver. And again, this is the time we're all wondering, hey, what's going on with silver? It's not moving. We saw the ratio bump up to 93, 95, silver gold ratio, and we're wondering what's happened. And then the announcement that this guy is coming over from HSBC to head up Deutsche Bank. And wow, we really start to see some movement in silver. So this is the reverse of what we typically see. So if it is Deutsche Bank, which a lot of people think it is now, they're going long. They're going long in a big way, and they're buying silver in a big way. And so it kind of makes you wonder, like I say, typically they're going to short the market, but this time, at least for Deutsche Bank, looks like they're going long, and they're buying and taking delivery of physical. So it just kind of makes me wonder a little bit, and I'm trying to look at my notes to see what else I have here. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about this with what's been going on, and was maybe the silver price being held down so that Deutsche Bank can get in on the lower silver price and start to pick up a whole lot of silver before the price finally started to get pushed up a bit. I'm curious about that. Robert Merrill, check J.P. Morgan's books. They have a stake on both long and short, but have been going net long since 2016. Okay, we'll have to check because I'm more familiar with a lot of these guys going short. Okay, Michael Altero, have you heard anything more about Andrew Maguire advising UK Parliament on metal trading? No, I haven't. To be honest, I haven't. A lot of things going on. I wish I could divide myself up and look into all these different things. Pablo Pina, I wonder who sold DB the silver. Well, we're going to get into that. Who sold DB silver? Well, actually, we're going to get more into J.P. Morgan and them buying silver. But between these guys, I think if Deutsche Bank is doing this, something big has to be coming down the road. something fairly big has to be coming down the road if they're taking physical delivery, if they're getting into, well, they always will get into the paper portion of silver and gold, but taking physical delivery now, that says something big. Is our money about to fail? I mean, a lot of people are already saying de-dollarization. We just took a look at a report coming out from J.P. Morgan. Um, is our money really, really set to get into a whole lot of trouble? And money never lasts forever. Historically, either it fails, or sometimes it runs out. And this reminded me of the story of Joseph. Bear with me here. The story of Joseph in the Bible, where in Genesis 47:15 to 19, Joseph, it's about Joseph anyway, when money fails. So what had happened was Joseph, Pharaoh had a dream. Uh, Pharaoh, I think, sorry about that. And Joseph interpreted the dream as there was going to be famine throughout Egypt for 7 years or so. And so he started saving up food. And so what happened is the rest of the regions, they ran out of the food, and they were really having a hard time. And then eventually Egypt ran out of food, and it was having a hard time. And so the Pharaoh told the Egyptians to go see Joseph because Joseph had been storing a lot of food, corn in particular. So what happened was they paid Joseph money. They had to give money to Joseph to get food. Then what happened? The money failed. Eventually, all that money's gone. Okay, there's no more money, or no more money that really works or can't be really circulated efficiently because people just do not have the means to get money anymore. Money's not holding the value. Money failed. So what happened after that? People had to sell their cattle for food, trade, barter. They sold their cattle for food. Eventually, they ended up selling their property for food, real estate. So if things go bad and guys need money, I guess you can expect to say real estate is going to be one of the things people are going to have to be offloading. If they're not in a good position, they're going to have to offload to get some type of money or something that they can use for it. Eventually, the tough part, they sold themselves and they became slaves. And that's the part that's interesting to me, where the money failed. People didn't have money, must have been getting chaotic. For them anyway, was food. Surely things were getting chaotic, and they had to do things they would not normally do. And this is the can be quite troubling because you're not going to know what's going to be going on in people's minds, because they are going to have to survive. We're all going to have to survive. And I'm talking more specifically about this upcoming Fiat event. Again, J.P. Morgan is letting people know maybe to start looking to Asia or Asian currencies and start looking at gold. And so it kind of comes full circle, where even we see this whole Deutsche Bank things where, they trim the fat, restructuring, but they held on to their precious metals business, and they're buying a whole lot of metal. So something's coming up, and I think we know already it's going to be de-dollarization. So we need to have, again, that insurance. Okay, going through some questions or comments. Sounds like DB is desperate to make money. The banks are turning on each other. You know what? At some point, I think they are. They have to stick together. But the issue, like I just mentioned, every country has its own set of needs and circumstances and issues. So to throw a blanket over everything and say, here's a one thing that fixes all, don't think it's going to happen. I think countries are going to have to hang on to their own currencies for a while, but probably those currencies are going to be revalued. So you and me might have a revalued dollar, but I think for the governments and central banks, they probably will have their own thing at some point. And more than likely, in my opinion, it's going to be valued against gold. Who knows? Maybe silver. Okay, so let's move on a bit. So we all know that these funny things were were going on, and with Deutsche Bank, J.P. Morgan, all these banks. But something recent also came out with J.P. Morgan.
There is a hidden scandal in the gold trade. Fake bullion. Not fake metal, that is, but bars falsely identified as coming from reputable refiners, when in fact they come from places unknown and may be used to funnel funds to drug dealers and warlords. Over the past 3 years, mislabeled bars worth $50 million have been found in vaults, including those of J.P. Morgan. That is according to executives at gold refineries, banks and other industry players. They've told Reuters that at least 1,000 such bars have been found. But the fakes are hard to spot, meaning there are probably many more out there. No one knows who's making the forgeries, though industry sources think most originate in China. Consultants say up to 600 tons of gold is snuck out of the country every year. The allegation is disputed by the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which regulates China's bullion market. It says it isn't aware of any forged bars. J.P. Morgan wouldn't comment on the Reuters figures. It would only say that it always alerts authorities when a mislabeled bar is found and its customers haven't lost any money. But few dispute that the problem exists. Now refiners are fighting back with technology. Swiss producer Metalor puts tamper-proof ink on its output. Others keep a microscopically detailed scan of every bar as a record. But every kilo of bullion is worth around $50,000 at current prices. Not many fakes have to sneak through to make big money for smugglers.
Okay, so we saw J.P. Morgan has found out that some of what they had was fake, and that reminded me of a story. I think a year back or a couple years back or so, where a jeweler bought a RCM 1 ounce RCM gold bar, Royal Canadian Mint gold bar from a bank, and he was going to melt it down to have it made into jewelry, and he found out that the bar was a fake. So, the interesting thing to me is, how could this have happened? How do counterfeits make their way into the supply chain? And these were two banks. You would expect banks to be pretty tight, and where these things would not happen, but they did. So how could this have happened? How do counterfeits make their way into the supply chain? I'll go through a few of the questions first. If your drill doesn't go through with ease, then it's a fake. Keep the plug with the bar. Okay. George, it's a myth that gold is an inflation hedge. It's not. You know what, George? I hear two sides of the story, but like I say, had the U.S. kept the silver in their money right now, $1.50 face value of silver would be worth $18. And what are people fighting for today? A $15 minimum wage. So I'm going to have to disagree there, and I'm going to say gold and silver do fight off inflation, because right here's a great example of it. Had they left the silver in the money, it would have fought off inflation, and we would be getting today what we're trying to try and get. Inside job, Elbo Sanchez, how you doing, buddy? Let's see. U.S. debt clock tells you that silver price should be $3.50 an ounce. Again, yeah, I think these are measured though against the money printed in existence, or the money in existence. If gold and silver had to account for all the money that was ever made, which it had to do before, at least 2 times prior, that's where the price of gold or silver would have to move up to account for all the money that's been created. So is it a number just, made out of, I don't know, is it just made out of, thin air or anything? No. There's a reason behind it. It's called math. If you have to account for all the dollars made, that's where gold and silver would be. And that's where they get these numbers. Will it be priced to 5,000? I don't buy that too much. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because I don't particularly care what the price of gold or silver is going to be. What I care about more is, what can gold and silver buy me? I want to know that this ounce of gold can get a certain thing, or these ounces of silver can can get certain things where they store the value of my money. So I don't necessarily care what it's going to be revalued to. I care more about how it's going to be measured against other, and I'm going to say commodities, because commodities are probably going to be the only things that are real. Your sugar, your wheat, your pork, your beef, your lumber, whatever it is. I'm not going to, you may not be needing paper stock certificates at that point. You want to know your gold and silver has a value against something else that's real. And that's where I'm at on it. I don't care about the price. It may not even be in dollars. What is it going to be in renminbi? What is it going to be in SDRs? Because at that point, you, you may not care what it is valued in dollars. You might care what it's valued in another currency, or like I just said, for me, I care more about what it's valued against other commodities. Um, Robert Merrill, the true natural ratio is 1 to 9. That is true. That's what the miners say. It's coming out 1 to 9 out of the ground. Gold 10K, silver 1K. In the market, it's 1 to 30. Um, yeah, I've asked that question also with some of our guests, and what they had to say was it's also a demand factor, where if the demand is great, that's going to help, bring down the ratio. And we kind of saw that. We went all the way up to 95 with the silver to gold ratio, and then now it's back down to about 83 or so, because a lot more demand picked up on it. So you got two things that are kind of that are playing out here. One, of course, it's the what it's coming out of the ground at, but two, do people really want it? Does the industry really want it, and how much? So that demand factor also plays into the price, which plays into the ratio. Let's see. Fat Cat Scuba. First time I've seen you here. Welcome aboard. 16,000 people live in their cars in California. Thousands of homeless. Was in Vietnam recently. Not one tent. American economy is sick, and most Yanks ignorant. Um, I tell you what, yeah, that is true. Um, U.S. is having a tough time, and I think it's going to get a bit tougher before it gets better. There will be a day it'll get better. Not for the country. Do the things that you need to do on your own to make it better for you and your family. The economy is sick. It is sick, but I'm going to have to say, the rest of the world's economies are probably a lot worse, which is making it tough for the U.S. having too strong a dollar right now. And most Yanks are ignorant. I think most people are asleep. I don't think they're ignorant. I think guys are just asleep. And unfortunately, it takes a lot to wake some guys up. Elbo Sanchez, unless U.S. has no gold, I can't comment on that. I mean, none of us have seen any audit, right? I mean, in our lifetime, maybe we've never seen it. So is it there? Couldn't tell you. Don't know. A lot of people think it's not. Michael Otero, I'm thinking of buying landfills so my grandchildren can turn them into silver. Hey, there's a lot in the landfills: keyboards, electronic parts, things like that. Gold gets recycled, e-waste. Silver gets thrown away. You don't see really any silver e-waste companies out there. Um, Okay, George Kaiser, but I also acknowledge that gold and silver store wealth. They do, and any bubble needs to be sold into. Okay, and eventually popped as well. I heard continuously that if the world went to metals trading as commerce, central banks would push the button for the greatest reset, which is missiles firing from silos. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, you, you just don't know. You just don't know what they're going to do. But I want to get back to that question. How could this have happened where banks somehow counterfeit entered the banks chain? And the thing is, gold and silver are going to rise, and it's a sure bet as they rise, more counterfeits are going to come into the market. And you're going to have to rely on yourself to make sure what you're buying is the real thing. I know I asked a question a while back about if you guys test your metals, and a lot of you, probably about 85-90% of you, said you buy from a reputable dealer and you left it at that. Okay, fair enough. That's one thing you need to do is to always buy from a reputable dealer. So if we do that, surely the banks must do that, right? So how did counterfeits make their way into the supply chain? Well, in my opinion, a lot of it has to do with packaging. I know there are banks that when you buy a gold coin from them, let's say, they give you this gold coin in a plastic packaging, nothing special, just plastic. And it's thermally sealed, so there's a heat seal around it, and that's it. This heat seal, it's nothing you or I we can't make. We can go down and buy a thermal sealer, and we can create this heat seal as well. So I mean, it doesn't take much to just get those plastic sheets, put a fake gold coin in, and go ahead and seal it up. Same way that's done by the bank, which isn't anything proprietary or special, whatever it is, and give it to the bank. The bank will take it in. I never see them check it at the counter. They'll take it in, and then here comes someone else who's going to go ahead and buy it. And the thing is, you can't depend on anyone but yourself. I mean, associate with good people the best you can, as much as you can, good companies. But still, you have your own responsibility, and you need to check. For instance, guys with monster boxes, they want the strap on the monster box. They don't want it open. Well, I can tell you the straps can be counterfeited. Okay, it can be counterfeited. It can be a box full of rocks. I don't know. Put that strap on it, and here you go, an unopened monster box. Chances are very small, but just saying that, you need to check. Okay, there's always going to be a way to counterfeit something, especially even like those certicards, like the, let's say, the 5 gram, 10 gram, 1 ounce bars. They come in that certicard that's sealed, and then it has a little identification number, serial number to match the serial number on the bar. So guys depend on that. It seems all well and good, but the problem with certicards is counterfeiters know you will never open that card. You're never going to open it. They know that. And so it's probably the easiest thing to go ahead and counterfeit. So I'm just saying, if you have gold and silver, best to check it. And when you buy, best to check it at the dealership before you buy. Because I've said this before, a lot of gold and silver that's moved through dealers, a lot comes through buybacks. And it shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, just go ahead and look on any dealer's list. You're going to see coins 2008, 2010, 2012, 2015. Those aren't fresh from the mint. Somebody bought it back then at that date and sold it to the dealer, and the dealer is reselling it. So those aren't fresh, straight from the mint. So you have to always check on your own. So looking back at some of these questions here again, Min Chin Sao, how you doing? Think about it. The great USA is just now thinking of implementing counterfeit measures. Can they just borrow something from Sunshine Mint, at least with their special anti-counterfeit mark? Sunshine Mint, I just want to say one thing about Sunshine Mint. Sunshine Mint is the supplier of blanks to the US Mint. Okay, so the US Mint buys blanks, receives blanks from Sunshine Mint. US Mint is LBMA. The products that they put out are LBMA. But like I just said, the blanks that they're getting are coming from Sunshine Mint, a lot of them. But Sunshine Mint is not an LBMA refiner. So there's a very huge question there, where all of a sudden this blank magically becomes LBMA. And so how does that happen? Sunshine Mint is not an LBMA refiner. As far as I know, it's not an LBMA refiner. But the US Mint takes blanks from a refiner that's not an LBMA. They mint it, they put their designs on it, ship it out, but all of a sudden it magically becomes an LBMA product. Kind of strange, right? How does that happen? And so this kind of takes us back to the story with JP Morgan, where let's say it is pure gold or it is 9999 gold. It's just that there's a forgery on the refiner. You know, somebody else is putting on a different the same refiner's mark, refiner's name, refiner's logo. And so it's kind of odd because on one hand, the refiner is counterfeited. Their trademark has been used, okay, infringed upon. But on the other hand, the product is still gold. It's still 9999 gold. So it's a bit strange where if you were to ask somebody what matters more, the refiner's mark, where this is legitimately from the refiner, or that your gold is real. You know, I think you'd get a whole lot of different answers for that. But it kind of goes back to the reverse of what I just said, where Sunshine Mint is not an LBMA refiner, yet they supply blanks to an LBMA mint, or yeah, to an LBMA mint. Probably wrong word, but anyway, and then it becomes an LBMA product. So how does that happen? You know, it's LBMA. I tell you, it's a strange world. Okay, so getting back to some of the questions. Let's see. Dwayne, there's no fixated price for gold and silver until all is unearthed. Then true value can be assessed. But now it's just a myth. You know what? I agree. That's where, like I say, I look at not the price. I look at the purchasing power or price parity. What can it buy? Because for me, ultimately, in the end, that's the key. You need to know that it stores wealth where you can get things that you need. It held the value of your money in a different form, gold, silver, whatever it might be, and it can still buy you those same things because, like I say, in the end, the real things are going to be commodities or real estate. Those are the real things, not necessarily the paper or stock certificate or whatever it is. You need to know that gold and silver can still buy the commodities that you're going to need to move forward. Okay, so let's see. I paid to Wearwaves. Sorry about that. I paid to get my gold and silver tested and certified. You know that's a good move. You should. You should. And at the very least, these three things. Hang on. At the very least, get yourself a caliber. Okay. What this does, it's going to tell you the dimensions of a coin, even a bar for that matter, thickness of a bar, whatever it might be, a coin. You need to know the dimensions, the overall dimension of that coin. Why? Because that coin is going to have a certain weight. So you need to have a scale. So within a certain size, that weight is going to tell you the density. And silver and gold have specific densities. So that's one way to kind of help you along here if you don't have more sophisticated testing equipment. Get a set of calibers so you know the size, and get a scale so you know the weight. And that should help you figure out the density. And one more thing. Hang on, sorry about that. You should also have a magnet. Which I think just fell behind my printer. Sorry about that. Get a magnet. Get a magnet. Magnets should not stick to your gold and silver. And if you put that magnet on your gold and silver, it should just slide slowly right off it. It shouldn't just fall completely off, nor should it stick tightly on it. So if you just get those three things, get yourself a magnet, get yourself a caliber, get yourself a scale, get those three things, that will help you out a lot. That'll eliminate a lot of fakes. And you can easily find the dimensions of the coins and bars by going to that mint. You go to that mint or that refiner's webpage. A lot of times they will tell you or have the dimensions of the coins, and so that's how you'll know. Give or take, it might be just a little bit off from each other, but still test it. You need to test it. Okay, back to some of these some of the comments. Let's see. US debt clock, gold 6607. Okay. US debt clock, I mean I don't know. I mean it's a gauge, I guess. Elbow Sanchez, Magic Pez tester. You could get a Magic Pez tester also. But there are some things out there that you can buy, like a precious metals verifier. We do also have them here at Silver Bullion, but if you're in Singapore, yeah, sure, you can pick up precious metal verifier from us. But if you're in the States or somewhere else, you probably have a distributor in your area that you could get it from. And we call it PMV for short. It's a great tester in that you don't need to open up the CERTA cards. You can leave it packaged up in that CERTA card, and it'll still read through it. You have a coin that's in a plastic capsule, it'll still read through that plastic capsule, so you don't need to take it out. So it's one of the more popular equipment out there that people will use, and it's really quick. So even if you're like a coin collector type, and you have a binder with pages of coins, you can just really test it really quick, go through the pages and test, and then it again, it really saves time. But at least those three things. Now get a scale, have a magnet, and have a set of calibers so you know the size, the dimension of the coins. Okay, let's see. Like folks have been saying here, junk silver, junk silver, junk silver. I'm a fan of junk silver. I do think, if things happen to go bad, especially if you're in the US, junk silver is going to be the first recognizable form of money. We all know what a quarter looks like. We all know what a dime, what a nickel looks like. So that's going to be the first recognizable piece of money. Then would be probably the silver bullion, the coins, and the bars, things like that. So if I were in the States, I'd have some junk silver, definitely. In fact, I'm in Singapore and I have some junk silver. Why? Because it's the only part. Junk silver is the only part of the world's reserve currency that still has true silver in it. So even though I'm in Singapore, I have junk silver. There may come a time it'll come in handy. Silver ping sound, absolutely. That's another way to test it. You definitely want to do a ping test. Silver eagles, you're going to have more of a longer wave of a sound. Silver maple, you're going to have a little bit of a higher pitch sound. It's not going to resonate as long as a silver eagle would sound. So this is just to say that not all silver coins are going to sound the same when you give it that ping test. And that has to do with the thickness of the coin or the dimensions of the coin. So you have to imagine the sound wave is going to travel. If it has to travel through something thicker, something longer, something wider, of course it's going to sound a bit different. So not every coin is going to sound the same with the ping test. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Mention Sal, if US Mint is getting the blanks from Sunshine Mint, then I would imagine it should be easier to license the anti-counterfeit tech. It's sad in this day and age, mints can't do better with preventing fakes. And that's the problem. Mention Sal, you hit it on the head. The responsibility shouldn't be on us. It should be on the mint. The mint needs to provide ways where they can verify, and some are, but better. They need to do a better job that what they sell cannot be counterfeited. There needs to be a way to trace it back. Maybe even trace it back to its origins up to a certain point. It has to be traced back somewhere. If you were to call, let's say, Royal Canadian Mint, and you ask them about the serial number you have on your bar, I think I can pretty much guarantee you they will know nothing about it. You can tell them serial number, they're not going to know anything. I think even PAMP, a lot of those companies, they put serial numbers on the bars. Metalor, give them a call. Tell them you have bar number 12345. See what they tell you. See if they even keep track of their own wares that they sell. So right now, it's up to us to make sure what we're getting is real. There's going to be more counterfeits coming in the market. Mints are trying to do preventative measures, or they're trying to bring in measures that make it more difficult, but nothing is foolproof yet. So until then, we're all still going to have to be sure to test out what we have. Um, let's see, Gregorio, excuse me, do not buy eBay silver. Yeah, unless it's First Majestic. People are asking huge premiums on that when I last checked. Uh, okay, well, if you already have an established, reputable seller, then okay. But be careful. Just be careful where you're getting your silver from, and don't be afraid or ashamed to ask them to have if they can test it in front of you before you walk out the door. Because I tell you, there's going to be more counterfeits coming in the market, and last thing you want is a bunch of counterfeit. Um, Morgan silver dollars, where to buy? That depends. You can pick some up on places like Apmex. If you really want the rare collectible types, um, there is another website. I forgot the name. I just talked to one of their guys about rare coins. David Hall rare coins. If you really want the rare stuff, David Hall rare coins. That's where you want to take a look. It's a bit more pricier, but the coins they have, they're incredible, and it is rare, absolutely rare. But again, higher priced, and but they do seem to hold their value, and that's one thing about these so-called numismatic collectible coins. When we see gold and silver rise and fall, or more, when we see it fall in price, these collectibles, they still hold the value. They still tend to hold the value because they have that collectible aspect of the coin. Whereas the bullion totally dependent upon the silver price. Collectibles, numismatics, it's not so dependent on just the silver price. So sometimes, as an investment, those they're okay. Sometimes they're okay. For me, I will tend to stick with the bullion though. Let's see, you can buy Scottsdale Mint direct from eBay. Uh, Robert Merrill, SD Bullion. True. Scottsdale dealer advertising on eBay is different. Okay. If you listen to Mike Martin show, Mike in the Night, we belong together. Watch, please. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, you guys have some great comments, and I appreciate that. And, I know for now, we need to keep an eye on Deutsche Bank. We need to keep an eye on J.P. Morgan. We need to keep an eye on the trade wars. Um, we need to keep an eye on so many things right now, but try not to get caught up too much in it. Um, just enjoy life as much as you can. Try not to get caught up too much. Um, but not all the news is bad. Surprisingly, one guy had a little bit of good news, and I say surprisingly because it came from this guy of all people.
Silver, the high on silver was $50. That's when gold hit 1900, silver hit 50. And I think that once silver gets above 20, which we're now less than $2 away from $20 silver, but I think silver can move from $20 to $50 very quickly.
20 to $50 very quickly. We're just $2 away from that, right? So we'll see what happens with it. That's a bit of good news. So, silver, it's pretty volatile right now. It's moving up and down pretty quick. A lot more movement than gold has been, but that's silver. That's what we we always say. Silver is a more volatile metal. It's a good metal to have, and I hope you guys have been getting it. So, in a nutshell, yes, keep your eye on the banks. Keep your eye on trade talks. I know some people may be wondering about the consolidation. Trying to break down gold and silver, break the price, bring it back down. You know what? I think it's difficult right now for those traders to do, and I tell you why. It's because when you look at all the global events going on right now, and more importantly, the frequency of these events, they seem to happen right after another, after another, after another. You know, to try and short the market when the frequency of these events are so close together and happening more and more and more, to try and short the market, I don't think it's a wise thing to do. And so I think this is the other reason why you see these guys really going in long right now. It's just it's difficult for them to see a point where they can short the market. The events, the frequencies are just too close together. Where's the space for them to come in and try and make a play to short the market? It's getting kind of difficult now, and I think that's one of the reasons why silver and gold tends to be looking pretty good right now. Okay, so I'll be wrapping up with a few more comments here. I love Peter Schiff. His podcasts are really entertaining. Yeah, they are. I love his enthusiasm and optimism about gold and silver. Yeah, Elbo Sanchez, again, good to see you. The whole world is hosed. Maybe it's whoa. Yeah, okay. We're all hosed. Pure gold is not magnetic. True, pure gold is not magnetic. If anything, if you were to put a magnet on it, it won't stick. It should not stick. It should fall right off. But if you had, let's say, a gold bar and you placed the magnet on it and you tilted it at a certain degree, the magnet shouldn't just fall off either. It should just give a slow, gradual slide. Very, very small maybe attraction, but overall, no, nothing significant where that magnet should stick. Let's see. Where's the gold Fort Knox? Well, it's not in my room. I can tell you that much. Okay, let's see. First time catching the live stream. Enjoyed it. Jason, yeah, thanks for being here. I don't think I've seen your name before, so welcome aboard, Jason. Philip, no, thank you. Thank you, Philip, for being here. Peter can say more in one breath than anyone. Yeah, man. That guy, he can do it. Okay, so I'll be heading out, and the main thing, again, always be a blessing, not a burden. Do what you can do to help protect your friends, your family, the money that you worked hard for. Look into protecting your 401k. And again, we're all in this together, even though we have different viewpoints. In the end, we're all in this together. So let's all saddle up for what's coming ahead and silver up. You guys take care. Take care of everyone. Bye-bye.